For the last 30 years, mankind has been sending small probes into space. The oldest of these probes, Voyager 1, Voyager 2 and the Pioneer probes, were launched 30 years ago and have now left the solar system. The Pioneer and Voyager probes are fitted with a gold plaque which contains a map of how to find planet Earth, a diagram of what we look like, and an audio recording from Secretary General of the United Nations, an ex-Nazi called Kurt Waldheim.
In this film, we shall not only prove beyond all reasonable doubt that many of the official NASA images of lunar exploration are fake, but we shall also examine the motives for the biggest lie put before the world. Why did NASA repeatedly fake lunar images and photographs? Why did NASA stage lunar expeditions which did not happen? The answer will surprise you. It can be summarized in just 2 words: money and UFOs.
It isn't the government. There is no such thing as the government. There are several governments, and they're at war with each other. A real incredible breakthrough in what NASA and Viking claim they were searching for, life on Mars. Except, of course, they lied to us, they lied to us, they lied to us, and they've been lying on this subject for 30 years. So isn't the scientific method to check it out? No, instead of checking it out, they ran at warp 9 in the other direction. Do you want people to realize there's a way to do things without drilling in the Middle East and all the political and economic infrastructure that's been built up? No, I don't think so. And that plan obviously has been in place for the last 40 years. Every person to be sovereign suddenly, where they would have unlimited amounts of energy from a thing running in their basement that they never have to look at and touch again for their lifetime, just by flipping a switch that would draw energy out of space, out of another dimension, that would be hyperdimensional. No, not if you're into control, because how do you control people? You keep them dependent on you for the critical resources of life. Then when NASA went out into space, it would logically find evidence of possibly more advanced beings. And it said in the charter, on the Moon, Mars, or Venus. Well, advanced beings would have to be created by somebody, right? The resolution of this paradox is that Ed Mitchell has had something happen to his mind.
Oh, that answer I did know. Okay.
The astronauts,
okay,
I believe, have been tampered with.
Yes.
There are all kinds of papers now coming out in the open literature about technologies which can selectively wipe out your memories on specific events. And I believe, and I have in the book, Mike and I carefully put in document after document after document of reference to all of the astronauts at one time or another have complained about not being able to remember what they did on the moon. The lie is different at every level.
But before we look at the motives for lying on such a vast scale, let's look at where some NASA scientists came from. Peenemünde, Nordhausen, and other sites in Germany and Austria, Werner von Braun and his team of Nazi SS engineers built vast laboratories and rocket factories. The interior of an entire mountain was excavated to accommodate a secret space facility which was no less than 1 million square feet. It was here, at Nordhausen, in top-secret underground bases, that a huge number of experimental rocket ships and circular flying discs were developed. The prototype V7 craft was powered by engines manufactured by BMW. The V7 used 12 BMW 028 engines, which were powered with helium. Radical fuselage shapes were developed, which would later lead to the emergence of stealth aircraft and the cruise missile.
They have turned their expertise in scholarship, trained at a place like Oxford, on this problem. You wind up with 5 amazing books that document page after page after page a real hidden history, the alternatives to what the Nazis were doing technologically and politically, and how they almost seamlessly continued by going from one set of sponsors, i.e. Hitler et al.,
Right.
to another set of sponsors, i.e. the U.S. government et al., without even a break for lunch.
Okay.
And in the book, we have this stunning picture of von Braun and all these paperclip scientists standing under a kind of a cute Western motif. It's a sign hung on spindles up above the assembled scientists, and it's a UFO. It's an actual cutout in the shape of an unidentified flying object / saucer craft.
Okay.
And in the middle of it, there's this big swastika.
Oh,
This is in the United States of America after we won the war.
right.
And these guys are on shore leave away from White Sands into El Paso. This was a curio shop. It's called Bob's Curio Shop. And the photographs, the enlargements, are in the book. And of course, the reason that the swastika on it is so stunningly important, as we describe in rather great detail in the book, is because the swastika was a symbol that Hitler stole from history, going all the way back to the Vedas, this ancient Indian tradition that talks about spacecraft and nuclear weapons and vimanas and all kinds of astonishing high-tech stuff back at a time when there should be no such high-tech stuff. And what Hitler did was to take it, co-opt it, and use it for his own political and propaganda purposes very consciously, because what the swastika is an insight into an entire different level of reality, which I term hyperdimensional physics, out of which you get, on the one hand, if you really do it right, anti-gravity, making rockets obsolete, and then free energy, making centralized power plants and centralized power and the control of people through the price of oil also obsolete. So on both hands, you've got under proven now Nazi research and development efforts during and after World War II. You've got the keys to liberating civilization all over this planet. 6 billion people freed. And someone is sitting on that truth, and it's one of those 3 groups running NASA secretly, the Nazis.
After World War II, the underground base at Nordhausen was rebuilt in the Mojave Desert, a place we now know as Area 51.
A tremendous sighting took place, and I'm just completely baffled right now. So is Mr. Anthony Hilder.
Example of one of the many objects seen regularly in Las Vegas. Very bright object, just basically hovering over Las Vegas, 5:30 p.m. Cylindrical object, a craft. We believe it could be some kind of an observation platform.
The volume of evidence is that the space program that appears on the television news and has done these last few decades is actually only there as a movie to hide the real program, which is actually exploring things that these guys already know are there. There's this secret agenda in which advanced knowledge that people in general never hear is passed on to the chosen ones that are chosen to have this information and to move it through the generations. The agenda for centralized control and all that stuff. And then there's the movie, which is there to hide all that. And the movie is the official version of events that pours out of the television. They're being sold a cover story to hide what's really going on, not just in terms of the space program, but in every area of our lives. I mean, what is the more classic and obvious cover story than weapons of mass destruction, we've got to go and get them? And clearly, you know, we see it was a cover story now. If you had a brain, you could see it was before. I've said in my latest book, Tales from the Time Loop, that we're looking at the Fourth Reich. And then I put under that brackets, or a continuation of the Third, which never ended. People have no idea, the general population, because no one tells them, of the fundamental connections between the Nazis. The people now think, oh yeah, the Nazis have gone, and the American administration. First of all, the Nazis were funded out of Britain and America. Why is it that they were taking their wages home in wheelbarrows during the Weimar Republic? Germany was in economic catastrophe. A few short years later, they have a war machine that's taking on the world. How did this come about? Anyone else? Well, let's ask the Bush family. Because, and this is not just me, other researchers have come up with this, and a guy called John Loftus, who is he runs the Holocaust Museum in Florida, that Prescott Bush, who is the grandfather of the present president, he was a major executive of the Harriman Empire in America. And they had a company called the Union Banking Corporation, the UBC, which interfaced with the banking and steel empire in Europe of a guy called Fritz Thyssen, who was named at places like the Nuremberg trial and elsewhere as a major funder of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And what Prescott Bush, who was the key executive in the Union Banking Corporation, was doing was funneling money and other resources through the UBC into Thyssen's empire, and then it went to the Nazis, and that's where the war machine